Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi at-tahirin. Today we are having our second lesson of Quranic reading, where we give some grammar points or some points about the Arabic language and some mufradat, some vocabulary of the Arabic language or the Quranic language. And the important thing is to build block by block in the Arabic language, and to advance in understanding these things, and knowing where to look for the answers, and knowing how to address the issues in grammar, and knowing a bit about grammar, and being introduced to the science of grammar. So it's not expected that one walks out of these courses at Zakatul Ilm and becomes a grammarian. What's important is to learn and develop many ideas and many notions, and to learn as much as you can, and to understand as much as you can. So when we go into the topic of tajweed, Tajweed is that kind of special recitation that some Quran reciters they do. Some Quran reciters they do this special recitation, and it's like beautifying the recitation. It has certain rules, and it has its own course. It can have its own course on Tajweed itself. But when we talk about tartil, what is tartil? When we talk about tartil, we want to talk about the speeds of recitation, and which one does tartil get classified on. So this is just a topic that you get in Tajweed, and this will introduce you to this topic, and you could apply this in your salah. You recite salah with tartil. So tartil is to recite the Quran with pronouncing it correctly, pronouncing the letters correctly, and doing so at an average speed in a way that one can understand the meaning. So you're doing recitation of the Holy Quran, and you're pronouncing the words and the letters correctly, and you're doing so at an average speed in a way that one can understand the meaning. So when we look at the way that speeds, when we look at reciters, we can notice that people can recite at different speeds. Some at, like, as example, as like a metaphor, that are at 30 miles an hour, others are at 50 miles an hour, others are at 80 miles an hour at the speed limit. So 3 types of speed we can look at when reciting the Quran. The first is called tahqiq. Tahqiq literally means to give the right of the letter, to give the right of the letter, or the right of the letter, the right of the huruf. Like risalat al-hukuk, the hukuk, the rights. So this is to give the right of the letter. So what does it mean here? It means to, technically, it means to slowly, so it means to slowly recite. So technically, it is to recite slowly and more concentration. You can pronounce the letters in a perfect way and focus on the meaning when you recite slowly. Recitation in tahqiq, it falls under the category of reciters like Abdul Basit, famous reciter in the past, in the recent history, Abdul Basit. This is Qiraat tahqiq. This is the tahqiq style, the type that Abdul Basit recites. And anyone who recites at this kind of slow and more concentration more concentration, where you could pronounce the letters in a perfect way and focus on the meaning when you recite slowly. This is tahqiq. That's the first type of speed, which literally means to give the right of the letter, and it means to slowly recite with more concentration, so you can pronounce the letters in a perfect way and focus on the meaning when you recite slowly. The second speed is called tadwir. Tadwir means reciting the Quran with an average speed, So that's not very fast, but faster than tahqiq. It's not very fast, but it's faster than tahqiq. This is called tadwir. Usually, this is what people call as tartil. These days, in our common era, this is usually what people refer to as tartil. This is what is famous with the people as tartil. And it is mustahab to do tartil in your recitation of the Holy Quran while you're doing salah. So when you're praying your salah, you recite the Quran with tartil. So the third speed is tahdir. The third speed is tahdir. Tahdir means to recite the Quran with speed. This is the fastest type of recitation. Very fast. Some people who are trying to memorize the Quran or trying to become hafiz of the Quran, they are reciting very fast in the process, or they're reciting the Quran very fast in the process of memorization or in the process of reviewing the noble ayats of the Holy Quran. So they need to do so very quickly. So they recite very fastly. This is what is meant by tahdir. So they recite it quickly, and this type is mostly used, this speed is mostly used by memorizers, or probably people who try to finish the whole Quran in the month of Ramadan many times. They may recite very fast to do so. But it's very important that we take the time and ponder on the meanings of the Quran and understand the Quran. And of course, absolutely, we have to pronounce Quran properly. So it's very important to pronounce the Quran properly. And this is just some types of speeds that one is doing when they recite the Quran that we can find amongst the people who recite the Quran. So now we have this noble ayat. We're going to look at the Surah 4, ayat 113. وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكَ وَرَحْمَتُهُ لَهَمَتْ طَائِفَةٌ مِّنْهُمْ أَنْ يُضِلُّوكَ وَمَا يُضِلُّونَ إِلَّا أَنفُسَهُمْ وَمَا يَضُرُّونَكَ مِنْ شَيْءٍ وَأَنزَلَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَعَلَّمَكَ مَا لَمْ تَكُنْ تَعْلَمُ وَكَانَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكَ عَظِيمًا. Okay, so this ayat is translated as, transinterpreted as, were it not for Allah's grace, so it's his fadl, but anyways, so were it not for the grace of Allah and his mercy on you, a group of them were bent on leading you astray. But they do not mislead anyone except themselves, and they cannot do you any harm. Allah has sent down to you the book, al-Kitaba, wal-Hikmata, al-Hikmata, and the wisdom, and he has taught you what you did not know, and great is Allah's grace upon you. This is a transinterpretation of Surah Nisa, ayat 133. So let's look at the words. وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكَ. Then we have لَوْلَا. لَوْلَا is if not. لَوْلَا is if not. It's called حروف الشرط, letter of condition. Fadlu is transinterpreted as grace. Alayka is the two words. It's a harf jar and a pronoun. So the harf jar is Allah. Allah is pronounced Allah when by itself, but when it's connected to another word, it's attached to a pronoun, then that ya is going to come out and a sukun will go on that ya. So it becomes alayka, alaykum, alayki, alaykuma, alayhum, alayha, alayhi. Ka is a second person, singular, masculine, attached pronoun. We call pronouns dama'ir. This is an attached type. It's second person, which is the type that we call mukatab. Second person. We have ghaib, mukatab, and we have ghaib, mukatab, and mutakalim. Third, second, and first person. So like third person is like when you say like them in English, him, her. And second person is when you say you both, you all. First person is when I say I or we. So this is a first person. This is a second person, singular pronoun, masculine. If it was ki, if there's a kasra on the kaf, then this would be a feminine, singular, second person pronoun. So let's talk about the conditional particles. Adawat or shart. These are huruf, particles. Huruf can be used for letters or particles. These are huruf which permit a conditional sentence to occur. So these are huruf that permit, they allow for a jumla ash-shartiyya, a conditional sentence. Hence, it allows for a shart, a conditional clause, and jawab al-shart. Jawab al-shart is the consequent of the condition. So when you have a conditional statement, you have shart wa jawab al-shart. You have a condition and a consequent. Condition and a consequent. As example, if I say, if Zaid arrives, this is the condition. And that if is the conditional particle. If Zaid arrives. Then we have Jawab al-Shart, the consequent of the condition. Then we shall eat lunch. Then we will eat lunch. If I said Zaid arrives, we shall eat lunch, there was no condition. So if Zaid arrives, then we shall eat lunch. There are particles here of condition. If Zaid arrives is the conditional clause, and Jawab al-Shart, the consequent, is then we shall eat lunch. What will happen? In the Arabic grammar, in the Arabic nahu, and in the Luga, in the language, we have two types of conditional clauses and consequential clauses. So we have two types of huruf al-shart and two types of jawab al-shart. They are titled as adawatu al-shart. Adawatu shart. They are the particles of condition, the conditional particles. Adawatu shart is of two types. The first are those types that make the verb of condition into the state of jazm, majzum, jazmiya. Like a common one that you will see is when there is a sukun on the end of the verb. Jazm only occurs to verbs. So the first type of these huruf are those that make the verb of condition into the state of jazm, majzum. They give jazmiyah to it. The second are those that do not make the verb majzum. They're ghayr jazmiyah. So we have jazmiyah and ghayr jazmiyah. First are those that do make the verb of condition jazm, and the second are those that do not make the verb jazm state. So those that do make the verb jazm as a conditional particle are as follows: in, ma, man, and ma has different types. So ma has different types. So we have in, and we're talking about conditional statements here. So if it's not a conditional statement, then we have to look in another chapter about that. In, ma, man, mata, mahama, aina, einama, kefama, heifuma. These are all those types of huruf in conditional statements that will make the conditional verb into majzum. If they come in a conditional statement, the verb of condition will become majzum. If in, ma, man, mata, mahama, aina, einama, kefuma. I think it's kefuma. It's kefama here, but I think it's kefuma. Heifuma. These are huruf that make the conditional verb into majzum. Those that do not make the verb of condition into jazm state, they do not make that verb of condition into majzum. They are first idha, second law, third lawla. Remember for the ayah, lawla. Then we have lamma. Then we have kullama, kullama, kullama. So either law, lawla, lamma, kullama. These are those that do not make the verb of into majzum of condition. So let's look at our ayat here. We had walawla fadlu Allahi. So anyhow, so we have walawla fadlu Allahi alayka. So this lawla is here in this noble ayat of the Holy Quran. So that is everything for this lesson. Wa akhiru dawana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.